Hello, everybody. It's Eston. I wanted to continue our conversation that we've been having about privilege. In some of the previous videos, we discussed in some of the other videos some of the different groups that were privileged, had more privilege or than others, and we discussed race and gender and sexuality. There are lots of others as well. But I kind of wanted to highlight one group in particular that I think is often left out of the social justice conversation, and that group is the non-human animal group. I think that the ultimate privilege, that the largest privileged group on the planet is actually humans. As evidenced by the environmental degradation that we have wreaked upon the planet, as well as the ongoing violence, just the unbelievable scale of the violence that's done daily, hourly, by the minute to non-human animals. Literally billions and billions of animals suffer and die and are killed by humans for really three basic reasons: due to convenience, due to pleasure, and due to tradition or culture. And I think this human privilege is often left out of the social justice intersectionality conversation when it really shouldn't be. It should really be forefront. And I think that there's such a psychological disconnect among humans about animals that is so very old. It probably goes back to our very beginnings as a species, struggling to survive. But you know what else goes back that far is probably gender roles, and something else that goes back that far is probably sexuality roles. Cross cultures all around the world, you can kind of tell how old some cultural idea is by how widespread it is sometimes and how far it goes back in history. And this sort of role or subjugation of non-human animals really goes back to the beginning of recorded time for humans, and before, because it's in the archaeological Stone Age record, and it's all around the world. It's through all cultures, or all around the world. So it's something that's been around probably a very, very long time. Hence the traditional component of why it's so hard to recognize and change, I think. But I wanted to, make one point about humans, non-humans. A lot of times, philosophically, people think of themselves as different than animals. Like there are humans and then there are animals. And humans are animals. This idea of humans as separate and different than animals is an othering mechanism that's common. It's used in feminism talks about this, where women are othered. Then there's the straight, and then there's the other. That's the gay. Othering is something that happens, psychologically to make this group different and somehow easier to exploit or easier to do violence against. So animals are the classic other. So humans are animals. So we evolved with them. We evolved alongside them. We evolved. I won't say we evolved from them because we never evolved out of being an animal. We are a biological animal, evolutionarily and biologically speaking. Philosophically, you can go back in the record and you can see where some of these ideas have come from in Western thought anyway, which is really the only thought maybe I can speak to on that, historically speaking. But I think it's important to recognize this, because what privilege really is, it's violence, it's power. And when you step back, and like we discussed in our previous video, if as a white male, I needed to step back, from my narrative of my life, and I needed to see and recognize and own, where I had been privileged. And as a human, we need to do that too. We need to step back from our culture. We need to step back from our convenience, and we need to step back from our pleasure, and we need to see where are we enforcing this privilege component against non-human animals. And obviously, I think, the big answer for many, or if not by far most people, would be food. So they're used for food. And, this biologically, humans do not need to use animals for food. We can exist perfectly well, healthy, happy lives without committing violence to animals. It's not necessary for our biological health. Even if we were obligate carnivores, which we are not, but even if we were carnivores and we had evolved killing other species in order for us to live, like a cat, like lions, they are obligate carnivores. But if we were obligate carnivores, if we had evolved as obligate carnivores, at some point we would reach a technological capability where we didn't have to do that anymore. And we could supplement our diets so that we wouldn't have to commit that violence if we were an enlightened species. So even if we were carnivores, which again we are not, but even if we were, it would behoove us morally as if we were going to become an enlightened species, to stop the violence against other species. So we could say, okay, well, yes, we evolved as carnivores, but now we have the technology where we can supplement our diet with these amino acids where we don't actually have to kill animals to get them anymore, because we're no longer primitive people who rely on just happenstance for our food. But we're not obligate carnivores. We don't have to do that. Right now, all we have to do is just stop eating animals and eat a balanced diet of fruits, nuts, whole grains, legumes, vegetables. This is enough for anyone to live on. You get all of your proteins this way as a human. So it's not necessary. Then another way that we use them, privilege them, is for entertainment, which this blows me away, but unknowingly, people a lot of times they are entertained by things such as rodeos, maybe horse racing, SeaWorld, which is in confined animals trained to perform for humans enjoyment. This is exploitative. This is taking another species and using it for your own, and it suffers for it, and using it for your own pleasure. Their skins, their fur, their feathers, not necessary for us to wear or use for clothes or anything. We don't need them. And like I said, even if we had evolved using them and needing to use them, we don't have to do that anymore. We can stay perfectly warm in the winter without wool. We don't need down. All of this causes incredible suffering. This is very easy to see online if you want to look it up. Privilege means power. Privilege means, and recognizing your privilege and rejecting the privilege system means rejecting that whole system. It also means rejecting violence against others. It means rejecting violence against any othered group. So as a white person, I reject violence and discrimination and prejudice and this type of thing is a form of violence. I reject that against people of other races, other socioeconomic levels, other educational levels, otherly abled. It's just recognizing that and not participating in it is how we will achieve social justice. I I think that non-human rights and abolitionist veganism deserves a place at the table for intersectionality of social justice alongside feminism and gay rights and um, the elimination of racism and all the components of social justice. And I actually don't think we can ever achieve true social justice in our culture until we recognize that and until we act on that. And acting on that means rejecting it on a daily basis, and that means rejecting. You don't order the chicken sandwich for lunch. You don't wear the leather. You don't participate in the system of exploitation at all. That's what it means to me. So I hope I've been clear in this part of the conversation. It sort of opens up a whole new conversation that I've actually been wanting to have about abolitionist veganism, because I think it's super important, and I think it's critical actually to the social justice movement. So I'd love to hear what you think about it. I'd love to continue the conversation with you. If you want to continue the conversation with me, head on over to my blog, Ernestly Eston at blogspot.com. I'll put the link in the details here. You can also find me over at Facebook at Ernestly Eston. But if you don't want to continue the conversation with me, talk it over with your friends in your social group, and or just have a dialogue with yourself. The important thing is just keep that conversation rolling. That's it for now. I hope to get with you soon with some more videos on some interesting topics. And until then, I will see you soon, I hope.